It is now time for another interview from the backlot. This episode's guests, director Jamie Wede and writer Leah Simmons from Valentine Crush. Hello and welcome to Backlot 605. I'm one of your hosts. I'm Casey Keltman. Joined with me is my co-host Brian Mensing. Hello, Brian.
What's up? I'm actually in the studio
You
for once.
are in the studio for the first time since I don't know when.
I don't know when, and I don't have little kids trying to tell me to fix something.
I'm going to be the one that tells you I have to go potty in the middle of this.
Hey, as long as it's not a bloody nose for 15 minutes, we're okay.
Well, that's all right. Brian, today we are here for another interview. We're joined by a gentleman we've known for a very long time, Mr. Jamie Wede. He is the director of Valentine Crush. Jamie, how you doing?
Wonderful. Good seeing you guys again.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're joined by the writer of the film, co-writer of the film, Leah Simmons.
That's
Welcome.
right. Thanks. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. Glad to have you both on. Jamie, we've known each other since Indie Events was going on. That's where you and I met each other. That was a fun time when we did those. And now you're jumping from showing movies to making a movie. And I know you've done that before, and I've seen some of your previous films. What's been, like, first question, what's been your journey from going from making movies and showing movies to now making a feature-length movie?
Well, I think, with indie events being gone, there's a little more time and money I had at my expense. Like that sucked up a lot of money and very little reward. And I hadn't made a short film in a while. And after talking to all the various directors of indie films that we got to interview during indie events, which was probably better than any film book you could read about how someone came up with money, ideas, direction, how to move things around and get your stuff out there, what festivals are important to hit. Those are things you're not going to get in a handbook. And most of the people that we talked to had distribution. Some of them didn't, but were working on it, but they still were able to come up with plenty of money to make their films. I was also talking to them about how to do successful Kickstarters, other things like that. So I kind of knew that when I was ready to make a film that I would have a path, and I just had to find the right script that would be able to generate enough attention to start out with.
So how did you two come together on this project? You said you went to indie events before. That's how you met Jamie as well.
Yeah, I came to indie events for a long time. We'd see the posters around town, and there were always these weird movies that you would never see at any theater around here. And Jamie's got a great rapport with everyone that shows up at those events. So we, became fast friends and talked a lot about movies. And I had been writing short stories I was adapting into audio plays for podcast. I was working with Robert Mailing here locally. He had produced a season of horror sci-fi shorts called Edge Case. And we did 2 episodes together. They were really, really fun. And I had this idea to write a roller derby horror story. And that was kind of where it started. It was a little rough, and I wasn't sure how I was going to work in an audio format. Derby seems very visual. So around Christmas time, after I had a rough script, I sent it to Jamie. I mean, very rough, not going to lie. And Jamie had said, like, I really think this has potential. And that kind of kicked off the whole conversation that became Valentine Crush.
Right. Getting back to indie events, when I needed poster art done that films didn't have poster art, we did a shark exploitation double feature. Leah actually made the poster, and Wild Eye Releasing loved it so much they asked if they could ever use it. So I've sent them the art.
Nice.
So I don't know if they've used it since, but they were big fans. Rob at Wild Eye, and she also helped me with the Night of Cousin Wonderlet shorts. And Brian Benson, who plays Cousin Wonderlet, he's also a producer. He produced the documentary on Dolores Huerta called Dolores, and he was a producer of Sorry to Bother You, and first assistant director of Diary of a Teenage Girl. So he absolutely loved it, and when we made him a big one, and I think he like told me it's framed up somewhere. So Leah helped anytime I needed it. She just was always there to lend a helping hand as far as indie events go. But she sent me a script and wanted to know if I would read it. And when I read it, I could tell, she told me beware, it was meant for radio. So there was several things I needed her to fix, but I definitely saw, like I visually saw it in my head as I was reading it. And I was like, this is the movie I needed to make right now. I'd read it shortly after my mother had died. So, losing my maternal figure in my life and then deciding to make my first movie about some badass women roller skaters seemed like the right thing to do at the time. And I also thought that there's a lot of potential with roller derby getting big. I do like to travel, and everywhere I go, I see derby posters. Maybe it's just because I go to those kind of bars or something that they'll be hanging that stuff in, but I know it's big everywhere else in the country, and it's growing fast and it's getting a higher popularity. So I knew that there was a marketability with that. And I didn't necessarily want to make my first film as artsy as I would necessarily want to. I wanted to make the first movie that was going to get attention and say, hey, I can make a cool movie and I know what's marketable and sellable. The idea was to make my first movie as something I could sell to somebody rather than try to prove that I'm this Orson Welles in the making. I saw a lot of potential here. So I gave Leah a few pointers on adjusting the script into a better format, cutting out some of the narration because obviously it was for radio, so everything needed to be narrated.
Right.
And like some of the stuff you combine with the guy, the derby announcer, things like that. And then when she sent me the second script, it was a lot better. And then I sent it to my friend Jeremy Stevermer, who had worked for the San Francisco Film Society for 15 years. He's tech director of the San Francisco International Film Festival, one of the oldest film festivals in the country. He did that for like 10 years, and he went to grad school for film out there. Little side note, he was also in Mike Borkhardt's Coven. He helped him get some film when he needed it in the middle of the winter. And we'd always talked about working on something together. And I said, I got this film. I want to make this happen. I need you to look at it and tell me what the potential is. And he read it and gave Leah a few more notes and said he wanted to help us produce it and wanted to be involved. And then I reached out to a couple other people to get involved, and the ball rolled.
Yeah, one of the questions I have is where did you get the idea of wanting to combine roller derby or horror? Like, what was the inspiration of this is what I want to write?
So I skated with the Sioux Falls Roller Dolls for 13 seasons. And during that time, boy, you meet some people. And like, I won't lie, it was like the most fun of my life. It was great. You'd meet amazing people. We traveled literally all over the world. But there was always this thing, you'd have these encounters. So you'd go to these games and roller derby, it's all volunteer organized. So like none of the women are getting paid. We're all just showing up and we're just beating the hell out of each other. So you have mad respect when you go to the game afterward, go to the bar afterwards, and it's just, it's nothing but love. And then these fans, and you always have like those weird fans who would come talk to you and be like, man, I've been watching all your games. I'm like, thanks. I'm going to go over there. So, I mean, it was just always that fear was in the back of my head. Like, I skated as Julia Wilde. I'm Leah Simmons. Like, we're very different people. Like, I am the nicest person. I would never just probably hit somebody. But I mean, I had a reputation on the track of being a really hard hitter. It was my favorite part of it, was just being a fucking wrecking ball. We can cuss, right? Okay. So I would meet these people that would just they would be in love with Julia Wilde and be like, that's not me. And, that was kind of that story is, what do you do when you meet somebody who just has this idea of who you are and is obsessed with it to the point of having a mental breakdown when they realize that you're not this perfect person they built you up to be. And that was kind of the seed that became Valentine Crush, is what happens when you have this guy who's obsessed with you, and then what happens when he is going through the breakdown of that fantasy and you're for the fight of your life.
I think that's where some of the good horror movies come in. It's just a matter of what is the what if.
Yeah, I
No
love like as a
question.
writer, like, you know, putting people in a corner and being like, well, what do you do in this scenario? And I've always thought that like a good pair of skates and a toe stop would make a really good way to just like bash someone to death. But you know, I leave practice late sometimes. You think these things, but
Someone jumps out, what I'm gonna do?
yeah,
I'm gonna skate.
I have big feet too. Like those metal plates. I mean, my skates are probably a good like, I don't know, 8 to 10 pounds. Like it's basically a brass knuckle with wheels. So you could definitely probably kill somebody.
Since Jamie, a lot of the stuff we've talked about over the years has been like genre based stuff. So
Right.
when you first saw this, was this like, oh shit, yeah, this is like right up my alley?
Yeah, I think probably maybe why she sent it to me. I really do like a lot more artsy movies than I let on, but I do love genre, and I do think I know it's popular, but I feel it's so underrepresented in this area. Like other places have midnight movies every weekend, and you know, that was one of the things with indie events that I was trying to push. I know Leah knew that I was trying to push it, but I also, showed voices of women filmmakers, and once a month LGBT. There's like I wanted to show a lot of things when I did indie events, and maybe that's another reason why I have some of the weird contacts I do. But I don't know. Leah trusted me with it, and the weird story was like right before any of this stuff happened with my mom and COVID, I was in Nashville in January, and I was hanging out with Kristen Ford at her place. We were playing Nintendo 64, and she was kicking my ass at it's a funny story because we were playing the Bond game, and GoldenEye or whatever. That's the multiplayer, and like I accidentally picked the woman character, and like Kristen was getting weirded out by this violence on women thing that she was being privy to, because she was like literally shooting me in the face, and like my blood splattering all over. But at one point she asked if I thought she should try acting out, and I said, yeah, like you've been in so many music videos, you've traveled the world, you've got a fan base, there's no reason to start acting. She goes, what do you think I need to do? And I'm like, oh, we just gotta find a film
right
to get
thing.
you in. And so after I called Jeremy, she was the next person I called, and I said, I think I can get you in a small role in this if you want to learn how to roller skate. She said, I got it. She played the Nemesis skater. She wrote 2 songs for the soundtrack, which were amazing. And then that's how the soundtrack built. I decided that I'm gonna reach out to a bunch of women musicians or women fronted bands that I know, and put a soundtrack together with all these different genres. And then that kind of snowballed really quick. And that soundtrack's fantastic. I'm pretty excited about that.
And that's one thing you and I, when we've been talking about Valentine Crush, that's one thing you bring up to me every time is the soundtrack. And I've listened to a couple of the tracks. And yeah, you're 100% correct. This soundtrack is banging already, and that's just 3 songs I've listened to off of it.
Right.
So how many songs are on there?
They are. It's going to be double vinyl. It's 26. There should be.
Wow.
There was a 27th song that I threw out. It's still in the movie. We're planning on putting on a side EP for it, potentially a 7-inch. So we're putting out the soundtrack on vinyl. It's going to come out double vinyl. It started as a Kickstarter reward, but then we found out that ordering 200 is like $600 or $700 cheaper than ordering 500.
Sure.
So we went with the full 500, and we're hoping to move them. So we're gonna have several soundtracks, and the stipulation was we with one of the bands that there's a band called Fea that's on there that's signed on to Blackheart Records. It's the label owned by Joan Jett, and our contract with them was only allowing us to put 500 vinyls out. And then when we sell the film, they have whoever buys the film will have to negotiate what the terms are.
Got to get one of those, put it right next to the rest of the vinyls that I've been getting lately.
Yeah.
I've been on a weird vinyl kick lately, so that'll be right up my alley.
Right.
It is an addiction, and you become very obsessive compulsive with it. Like,
As somebody who has gotten a little diving into that, like I literally have $200 worth of vinyls on order right now.
It happens quick.
Right? Are you guys? I mean, outside of like the artwork or anything like that, are you guys doing anything special for the vinyl for the release of the record or anything like that? Just straight the standard black?
Yeah, we are going to do a regrade. So basically, when they go in and cut vinyls, there's leftovers, and so we're going to do recycled. So yeah, they'll be all like different colors and stuff, whatever they have left over from other pressings.
That'll be nice.
I thought it'd be cooler than just doing plain black. We had the debate about going 140 versus 180 gram. And when I talked to the guy pressing it, and this is how you know the guy's an honest guy, he's like, there's no difference. I should try to upsell you, but I know that you're trying to stay on the budget. Like yes, it's physically nice to hold that 180 gram, but at 140, it's not going to skip. It's going to be the same sound quality. You might as well save your money because shipping is going to cost you.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. And in fact, Leah doesn't even know this, that we had this conversation, because I know what Leah's answer would have been to me right away. So I went and called some people that collect vinyl to ask what they thought, and they both agreed to go with the 140. I'm like, I didn't even ask Leah because I know what her answer is going to be.
Yeah,
So-
whatever works. Yeah, whatever
I
works.
just wanted to make sure, like, if there was a difference, and most people felt like it. So when I talked to 3 or 4 different people, it was like, okay, I'm not even going to bother. I'm just going to order the 140. But if they said the 180, then that would be my argument to Leah. But Leah, we have to do the 180 because of this, and this. I was trying to have my points in a row.
You know how to negotiate with me. So that's good.
They weren't. I didn't have them, so it was not even a conversation. Sorry, I kind of
That's fine.
aired that out in front of
It's just
audience.
It's one of those things where I think, especially if you're going to have such a very outstanding soundtrack to complement an outstanding movie, is, it's all about that presentation. You have a presentation, you're working on it to try to get the movie out, whatnot, and you don't want to have something that's kind of subpar on something that's complimentary in it. That's why, like, even like myself, for the stuff that I'm collecting on vinyls and whatnot, the first thing I'm looking for is it straight black? I'd rather get this one over there, because it stands out to me.
Right.
And you're building a collection, so you want things that are collectible.
Exactly.
And it's going to be a fold out,
Trifold?
No, just one big
fold.
fold out. And like, I mean, there was a couple bands that I didn't have connections with that I just kind of randomly threw it out there. And I'm like, here's the screenplay for consideration. And a lot of them read it and were excited about it. Where, like, the ones that didn't know me or I didn't get introduced by somebody else were kind of like, yeah, they want to be on this. One, the idea sounds awesome. They love the idea of the movie. And so it worked. So Leah's words helped with a few of them.
Something.
At least I had enough to know who to contact. But yeah, Bridge City Sinners are going to be on the soundtrack. Faya, obviously, they're pretty big. The Toxines. Kristen Ford wrote 2 songs. Bruiser Queen out of St. Louis. The lead singer was actually going to be here to be in the film, but since they couldn't tour and do all the music stuff, they had a job, and her job wasn't going to let her have that weekend off to come shoot her scenes. So she had to back out, but she's like, we are going to write that title track for you, though. I'm like, okay, that's cool. But so we kind of missed having Morgan here. We did get a hip hop artist named E-Turn out of Orlando. And from the time I initially had my first conversation with her, but to the time she came here, she was tapped on the shoulder to work for the Recording Academy, and she got voted best hip hop act in Orlando. And then she played Coach Payne, so she was like in like 3 or 4 scenes. But like sometimes you just have a couple of those artists that are about to blow up. I mean, since we shot, Kristen has gone out and got a role. She's got a lead role in a TV series coming out on a new platform on streaming service coming out this fall. She's starring in this sitcom, or what's the dramedy? She said something like that.
Sure.
And then I know she did some scene with Samuel L. Jackson for Apple TV. Like she sends me these text messages. Thank you for being a part of my journey. I'm just like, thank you for being cool. I like having friends that are a little cooler, way cooler than I am, because they still message me sometimes,
Right.
and thank me. But I mean, so all in all, like when these people blow up, even if it's a few years from now, I mean, we have a couple of younger bands that people go back and look at the soundtrack and like, holy shit, let's check this movie out.
Right.
You know, it's all going to lead back to the film
Mm-hmm.
eventually. And that's kind of why we want it. When we release the soundtrack, because everything's behind, Leah and I had talked about maybe doing a album release party in Minneapolis, because there's 5 acts on there. And one of the person that helped me find some music in Minneapolis just got my assistant just found out she's at stage 4 cancer. I just found out officially on Monday. So that's kind of been bothering me, but so I want that album done fast. Mm-hmm. She needs to hear it. Her name's on it twice. And she came and did a cameo in our bar scene and played the DJ.
So like one thing you guys both mentioned was the Kickstarter campaign for the movie, and that's where you can get the soundtrack on that. And that's one of the reasons we're talking today is because you're getting ready for the Kickstarter screening coming up here, August 28th at 7:30 at the Sioux Falls Orpheum Theater.
Correct.
So Jamie, you said you learned a lot, obviously, from talking to filmmakers on indie events. You mentioned Kickstarter there.
Right.
What are like some of the things you took away from that,
right.
and then put into your own, starting?
So what I talked to Leah about early on is that Kickstarter has been getting abused. And so filmmakers have found that it's better to at least get stuff shot and run your Kickstarter to get post-production funds, because when people know that the movie is actually in the can, they're more likely to contribute, because there's too many people that have put money on a film that, 3 years later, day one hasn't even been shot yet.
Right.
So I said, somehow we have to come up with the money to shoot everything, and then we'll worry about what we need to finish it with Kickstarter. And that's advice I've gotten from several other people as well. Also, starting a Kickstarter around when people get their tax returns is always a better time, because people have money. And then we got double benefited, because not only did people get their taxes back, but that stimulus money came in at the same time. So that was a little helpful. I wouldn't have, we can't guess around stimulus money. We just got a little lucky as far as that went. We actually kind of needed a little more, but we wanted to set a attainable goal, because this was our first Kickstarter. Now that we know how it works, we could probably get more and make it far less confusing. But I mean, it was our first shot at it.
We're learning.
Yeah, as I say, I mean, you can't learn if you don't try.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
So we are still taking donations for people that want to come to the screening. It is still going to be a donation-based admittance. Basically, we sold more on Kickstarter to go to a smaller place like the State Theater, because we thought that would be the perfect place to have it. We were all gung-ho, and then it's like, well, it'd have to do 2 screenings, and how do we tell who gets to go to the first or the second? And it's just not as fair. So we're having it at the Orpheum, and there's a lot of extra seats there. So if anybody's interested, just send us a message on our Facebook page, and Leah and I will make sure that you have a seat there.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's obviously one thing we'll talk about after.
Yeah.
But and that's one thing I'm really excited about, because I honestly can't remember the last actual local screening of a new movie.
Yeah, especially a feature length.
Especially a feature movie. Yeah.
I just in the 30 years I've been here, I don't know if maybe I was just completely oblivious and blind, but I mean, I don't think that that's normally something that just ever usually happens.
Right. Well, didn't I could get into that. That was,
that one did. Yeah.
Right.
But I think that was after it was released too. This will actually be the first time anyone's.
Oh yeah,
Premiere.
anyone has seen it.
Audience members.
And we're still toying around with the time. We're trying to get it to the 70-minute mark for this festival, and it's still looking like it's going to be a 60-minute. But 60 minutes is considered a feature at most festivals. And honestly, I've been looking at some of the newer movies that are getting hit on Netflix and what's the other, Shudder, and the ones that are around 60 minutes are getting viewed a lot more.
Because we're all sick of watching 2-hour movies. Sorry.
Right.
And
That's
I'm-
2.5 hour movie.
I'm
Just
not.
stop.
I could take another 2.5 hour
you
movie,
Just no.
but so I don't really think that's going to hurt us as far as sellability goes, especially when they're the biggest buyers. And what's even more exciting about that is a lot of them don't care if we were to continue on doing a theatrical run on our own. So we could do these pop-up parties in different cities. Like if we don't play at a festival in Austin, Leah's like, we're going to show it in Austin.
Oh yeah, I'm going
And
down
I'm
to
like,
Austin in
oh, yeah.
October. Like, I'll call the Texas Roller Girls. I have connections. I bet those bitches would love to watch a Derby movie.
Right.
Well, I was gonna say is that would be something I like you mentioned earlier. Like almost pretty much no matter where you go,
Oh yeah.
Derby's got some sort of presence to
Oh,
the
yeah.
point where it's like you might not necessarily have a connection for somebody in the theater or in that particular area, but you probably have a connection to a Derby who probably again would have probably who knows how many volunteers and members there that would be able to get you where you need to go. So
Right.
Well,
it almost seems like a very good fitting as well between the context of the movie, what you guys doing, and basically the grassroots way of being able to get it out there too.
Well, that's kind of like the spirit of roller derby. Like modern roller derby is a grassroots sport. Like it's completely skater owned and operated. So all these teams across the country, they're all run by volunteers. And COVID has been so hard on derby teams. They haven't been able to practice. They haven't had games. A lot of them, barely even seen each other because of lockdowns. And so like the idea of bringing a movie that is like made by derby skaters, stars roller derby skaters, like, we do have actresses, but, like our scrappy local skaters came out in all shapes and sizes, bruises and tattoos and all, and they skated in this movie. This isn't Whip It. This is, real derby. And I think that's something that's going to really resonate with that community, which would be an even greater way to bring the movie out to people.
Right. I mean, the possibilities they're so huge where like we could legit talk to some of the drive-ins down south and like we could have a derby match in the drive-in
I don't hate
and
that.
have some live music playing beforehand, because since we've got bands from all over the country on our soundtrack, it wouldn't be hard to pull a band over to a lot of places. Like Faye is just from San Antonio, is right by Austin, and then showed the movie at sunset. We have a big party just for that. Like it'll be a pretty fun. We could almost even book it as a tour if we really wanted to. Like, I don't know. It just depends on whoever buys it. Like, we're trying to keep it really, really tight because of leaks and things like that. But Austin is ideal. Like, we know they love music there.
Right.
Draft House Cinema started in Austin. The distribution company, Draft House, that split off into Neon, started in Austin, Texas. The American Genre Film Archives, which I know you and I've talked about a lot since Indie Events, they're located in Austin, Texas. Like, Austin loves roller derby, they love genre films, and they love their music. Like, we have all three in one package, and we can throw a bigger party.
You made mention of something here, and I would guess I would be kind of curious if it'd be something you guys would consider or have considered or whatnot, because you were making, kind of like taking it on tour. Like one of the first things I think of is, which I've done that. I went and saw a Jay and Silent Bob reboot when Kevin Smith was touring that. Sometimes you get some of these movies and whatnot, be like, hey, you know what? I'm going to go where I know that people are going to want to enjoy the movie or whatever the case is, and just take it on tour. And maybe make that be a means of, like you said, like its own festival circuit, if you will. You bring in a band, you bring in you'll be able to sell a ticket, whatever, but it's an experience more than it's just going to the movies.
Right.
But you build up that fan base. Now you've got a cult following, which maybe it's not box office success, but it's something that's bigger and better.
I mean, as long as at the end of the day, as long as you guys are profitable, to the point where you can at least make your money back.
Break even, right?
Exactly. At least make your money back.
Yeah.
But I think the experience just alone, being able to visit with the fans and the people and everything like that, and taking it across country and whatnot, I think would be, especially with the support of different derbies across the United States.
Right. Between derbies and bands, we're covered. I mean, I just went to a concert at Red Rocks, which was much, much more of an experience than watching a concert. And, I think about how we could do stuff like that. And like, we have the ability to do that. But I watched an orchestra, a hip hop show, and a kung fu movie all at the same time. It was my mind was blown.
Hip hop orchestra kung fu. Okay.
Yeah, when
That
the
sounds like
orchestra-
Wu-Tang.
It was when they weren't back in Wu-Tang. They were scoring the 36 Chambers of Shaolin. They played the movie in its entirety, and during the dramatic parts where you had to watch and like some the more dialogue heavy parts, the Wu-Tang cleared the stage and just let the movie play. And then when the big fight scenes come in, it was like I smoke on the mic like smoking Joe Frazier. It was pretty crazy, but I mean, like there's a lot of fun things we can do with this movie and Derby and music.
Do you have anything else you wanted to throw out there? I got last little wrap up.
I don't. I'm usually wrapped around the music when it comes to stuff like this.
Yeah, and that's and again, you and I we were listening to it beforehand, and yeah, again, this the soundtrack is killer. The storyline is one that I've never seen before, and one that's I think for, like Jamie said, genre fans, music fans, roller derby fans. It has that type of fan base can kind of come together all into one movie and really have an experience together, because there's nothing else like it out there. And so the last question I have for you guys, what's next for the movie? Obviously, you guys are finishing it up. You're gonna have the screening in Sioux Falls for Kickstarters.
Right.
What's next? It's going on the festival circuit, as you said, Jamie.
Right. So we have entered in a couple festivals, but they're still looking at our rough cut. And unfortunately, we're probably not getting in because of the rough cut. If we don't make the 70-minute mark, we will not be in Fantastic Fest. That's what it is. But the following, we missed the deadline for Steiches in Spain. That was another big one I wanted. But Screamfest in LA, we're still out there. That's still out there. The final call for that for deadlines or submissions has not hit yet. And then I'm looking at the Buffalo Fantastic Film Festival. That's been getting more and more popular throughout the years, and that's not until November, so their deadline's a little further back. So we will be able to have our screening here, which will be, it's not a rough cut at this point. It's been, by the time people see it on Saturday the 28th, plug the date again. It will have been edited a few times. But, it's nice to have at least an audience see it. And this will be the first time Sioux Falls actually gets to see a movie where, people from our town can say, hey, you might want to think about this. And we're going to listen to some people. And,
right.
And, if we're hearing some of the same thing from multiple people, we're going to cut some things or move some things around and do a final retweaking.
Well, actually, that makes me think are you going to, after we have the screening here in Sioux Falls, are you bringing anybody around to be able to just kind of get a Q&A or like a focus group? That's the word I'm looking for.
It's something we haven't really talked about yet, but we're going to have an after party. We're going to do a Q&A at the screening, and I'm pretty confident that between Leah and I, we'll know the people in the audience that make the most sense, make the most sense talking to us about how a couple things that they've seen that we could fix. And then we'll sit down with the people involved in making it and see what they saw, what we need to tighten up a little bit. But we'll be able to do that and still be able to hit some deadlines and have a better cut to send out to film festivals.
Nice. All right. Awesome. Again, the date is August 28th, 7:30, Sioux Falls Orpheum Theater. Message you guys on Facebook at Valentine Crush to get tickets if they have not done so on Kickstarter.
Valentine Crush movie on Facebook.
Is it Valentine Crush movie?
I don't know.
Is that what it is?
If you search Valentine Crush,
It'll pop.
we're the only thing out
Valentine
there.
Crush.
Valentine Crush movie. Just so we have our
Okay,
Facebooks
I wasn't
all in
sure.
order.
I was making sure that people are going to message the right place.
I just type in Valentine.
They never got back to me.
I can't even like when we post something on Valentine Crush, I can't even share it to my page because I'm an admin now. Like Facebook's making it so difficult. So I have to literally wait for someone else to share it so I can share their share.
Facebook's awful.
But
it works.
Yeah. Let's fill the seats up. And if 600 people actually showed up, I'd be ecstatic. I know we're going to have a couple hundred for sure, but it's just a little too big for the state. So
yeah. So again,
hit us up. We'd
Awesome.
love to see you all there. And we've been talking with Covert Brewery. They won't have it done yet, but at some point they're going to make a Valentine Crush beer.
Nice.
And hopefully by the time we actually can do the release, the main release, and show it for a weekend over at the State Theater. And
perfect place since they have the ability
permission
to sell the beer too.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Bonus.
But Covert's been great with us. We hosted our Kickstarter party there. We had some bands play live music. We streamed them in because we can't really have big get-togethers at the time still, and it's been fun. The band's been supportive. Sold a lot more vinyl than I thought we're going to get off the Kickstarter, like 80 copies. So now we only have 420 to go.
Okay, last question before I wrap this up.
Yes.
If they want to buy the vinyl, can they do so now? And where can they do
that?
I was like, how do I get a hold of mine?
The vinyl,
it's
not pressed yet, so we're still looking at a few months before we get it back. And
we'll probably make an announcement on our Facebook to let people order. Once we have them in stock.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna try to do a pre-order someplace. We are looking for a place that wants to host us when we get our test pressing, so we can get a bunch of people coming to listen to it off the vinyl. And we'll probably do some big pre-orders around then too, and probably get people at the Kickstarter price, like $40 or $45. So when they're out, they get dibs on those copies. It is limited to 500, so that's going to be another thing. When they're gone, they're gone.
Awesome. So send out your message as soon as you see it on Facebook.
I'll make sure to hit you up.
So Jamie, Leah, thank you both so much for joining us. And again, that's August 28th, Sioux Falls Orpheum Theater, 7:30. If you do not have your tickets from Kickstarter, message them on Valentine Crush Movie on Facebook. That's the actual title. So thank you both again.
Yeah,
yes,
thank you
you
guys
for having us.